Let's start.
Behind the Middle Belt killings is Caliphate ethnic cleansing. Behind Niger Delta agitation is Caliphate seizure of oil and gas. Behind Biafra and Odua agitation, Caliphate imposed unitary Nigeria. Behind the Caliphate itself is the rogue 1999 Constitution. Elections 2023 is Caliphate push to retain the 1999 fraud. Nigerians, say no to any further election in the country. Let's take down the 1999 Constitution and save our people and our land.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the joint NINAS Clubhouse session. Thank you for all your support and cooperation during the period we suspended our joint NINAS weekly Clubhouse meetings to mourn the sudden death of our beloved Otumba Shade Olukoya. May her soul and the souls of all our departed loved ones continue to rest in the bosom of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. We will be observing a 1-minute silence in honor of Otumba Shade Olukoya during the synopsis. Today's topic is union disputes. Why NINAS rejects the 2014 Confab report. In the next 19 minutes, we'll be listening to a Silverbird TV interview section with the NINAS spokesperson, Mr. Tony Nadi, entitled Back to Aburi, How We Got Here, Where We Are Headed. This broadcast highlights what happened with the President Goodluck Jonathan's 2014 efforts at the national conference. Thank you for listening.
With our very first interview on the show this morning, I'm focusing on what Mr. President had to say while addressing Nigerians yesterday at the 53rd anniversary speech, where he talked about the convocation of a national conference. With Victor and I in the studio this morning is one Nigerian who have been a strong advocate of this conference from time immemorial, Mr. Tony Nadi, who is the convener Movement for New Nigeria and also the Secretary General for Lower Niger Congress. Thank you, sir, for joining us on the show this morning.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Nadi. You have severally spoken about the convocation of the conference to discuss some of the most burning issues in Nigeria today, and how the decision of the president to raise an advisory committee to set out the modalities and procedures for a national conference. How did that news get to you?
Well, with a measure of relief, I must say, though I consider it a marginal improvement from what the situation demands. You know, a marginal improvement in the sense that all this while they had insisted that sovereignty now vests with the government to decide for us on all kinds of things. And our position has been that if they go to section 14, subsection 2A of the Constitution of Federal Republic, which they are using to manage Nigeria today, they will see the basis of all the arguments that sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom government, through this constitution, derive all its powers and authority. There's no other way. They know that that is the truth. Yet, Absalom Abubakar and a chain of other military presidents since 1966 took it upon themselves to usurp the sovereignty of the people and impose the constitution exclusive to the people. That is to say, they became the sovereigns by stepping into almost as if stepping into the shoes of Britain that had governed us for almost 70, 80 years up to that point, to impose a constitution that starts with the preamble, we the people. That is a forgery. That's a secret.
Okay, let me get you correctly now, Mr. Nadi. So you say that
the
this is not necessarily a solution to what we have.
The discussion we're asking for is that originating discussion amongst the ethnic nationalities that the British locked in here and called Nigeria. From that time in 1914 to now, it had not been their decision to be together, and the terms of that decision of that being together had already been imposed.
Let's ask you this question, because it's coming at a time where everyone is saying yes, it is very timely to have a national dialogue.
Yes.
For some people, it's not really whether it's sovereign or not that is the issue. The issue is we have got things to talk about, and there comes a time, thank goodness. The president is talking about it. Some would describe you as a pessimist. Isn't it too early to predict that this might not lead to the outcome we all desire as a people?
I was looking at the terms of reference. So first, one must commend the statesman in Mr. President in taking this kind of decision at this time in the midst of all the noise against it. And I was saying that it's not yet to Uhuru, not near where we will just come to the point where let's hope that this advisory committee, because many of the people on the list are people who have been in and out of the process we had embarked upon for over 15 years. To let Nigerians know that our situation is exactly like the situation of South Africa under apartheid constitution. What we're talking about is that all of what we're lamenting about, if you want to know what we want discussed, for which reason we are saying we have not even started, that preamble to the constitution that says we the people have decided to live here according to this constitution is saying that the Ijaw people have decided to submit their land and their people into Nigeria. And the terms of that submission is what the constitution is supposed to be discussing. And what we're simply saying is that what happened to the closest example from where everybody can copy, so that we don't get lost in the forest, so that we don't set up a fight that can be avoided. Okay, now when you talk about the, let me learn so that we can get it in perspective. We're not anarchists. I've spent 15 years of my short life to look into all the departments of. We've been going all over the place, digging into their archives. I have here the documents of Lugard, by which we were changed into this bad arrangement. We have all the documents they've been trying to hide from us, and we're going to expose it to our people. We already have some advertorials running since last week, and more will come in terms of bulletins. We're saying that we have a situation in our hand that is exactly like the apartheid constitution of South Africa, in which a minority imposed a constitution on the owners of the land, on the majority, and became the new owners of the land for 80 years. It came in 1910 or 1912 and stayed all the way to 1990. And what Mandela and Co, they had a parliament. Why was apartheid constitution changed by anything of the parliament? The government of Frederick de Klerk in 1990 came to the point where, having been resisted on the street enough, announced that the apartheid constitution of South Africa will have to be changed, and that the discussion that will bring a totally new constitution will have to hold.
This is what you want Nigeria to do.
This is the only thing, not what I want. This is the only thing that can solve the kind of problem we have.
That is,
and if they do not, is the question. Not do that, they will be leaving the ethnic nationalities with no option but to exit the union on their own terms.
Now, the question I want to ask you, if, for instance, now I have reactions from Alhaji Tanko Yakasai, who leads the Nigerian National Summit Group, NNSG, saying that this could be Nigeria's last chance. Beginning now, the present, if Nigerians fail to present and pursue common good positions, beginning now, but rather delight ourselves in our often vain and bitter debates as to whether or not the National Conference should hold, we still have none other to blame when they transform Nigeria, restructured through candid national dialogue shall emerge, without our people having been best represented by the fractiously selfish political class. And that is his reaction. I also have the reaction of the Ohanes Ndigbo. Are you saying that even the Afenifere that says President Jonathan should be commended, are you saying, don't you think it's too early for you to disregard these efforts?
No,
in as much as the president said, the advisory committee is to set modalities.
Yes.
He hasn't even mentioned the nomenclature of this dialogue.
I agree.
But he has said that, look, Nigerians would expect that people like you and others who have been in the struggle, who have been asking for the national conference, would at this point close ranks and see how you can, work this out. So don't you think that it's too premature to disregard whatever is being done right now?
Let us use this precious opportunity to explain to our people all over the country what the dialogue should be all about. Porel, if you go to the terms of reference, item 6, as I was looking at it this morning, the item 6 on the thing says all of what there was. If you read it out, it may fit into my. Just read it out, please.
To advise government on legal procedures and options for integrating decisions and outcomes of the National Dialogue Conference into the Constitution and laws of the nation.
That what you just read now defeats the entire essence of calling any conference, and it tallies with what David Mark was telling us the other day, that the conference will hold, but that nobody is going to discuss whether we live together or not live together, and that is the only question 75% of the country wants answered, uninhibited.
No, this 75%. Let
me tell you how I arrived at 75%.
How did you arrive at it?
Tambuwal, Speaker of your House of Representatives, said all of the politics.
Our House of Representatives.
As long as this is the basis of Nigeria, I tell you that more than 3/4 of the people trapped here do not want to have anything to do with that country. If you take a referendum today, that is what you will find. The only people who insist we must keep it, including some people I see on this list. You saw Mabeza and his patrons, how they are talking about Nigerianism. That is, they do not imagine that it is possible for anybody to say he will not be in Nigeria. They say nobody has a right to suggest that there will be no Nigeria. Whereas, unless we go to agree on the basis of submitting our lands into a new union, the fraud that Lugard put in place in 1914, and we have evidence of it, has come to an end. It will expire naturally 31st December 2013. That is the full 100 years. The current fraud of 1999, in which Absalom Abaka and his confederates in the PRC made a constitution and lied that we the people made it, renders this entire document.
Okay,
so
Mr. Nadi,
we are sitting on a
tell us how you plan to achieve what you are saying. Okay. Tell us how you plan to achieve what you are saying. Because what you are asking, hold on 1 minute, is that this constitution should not be. And you expect that a total overhaul. Let me finish. You want a total overhaul of this constitution, and you liken it to the South African appetite. Okay, tell us the process to get into what we are saying. Because the president also, do not forget, assumed office, or all the people you expect to do something about it, assumed office based on this document. So what is your practical step to getting this done?
South Africa in 1990 came to this bus stop where we have just arrived. The sitting government that was elected, and there was a parliament, Frederick de Klerk, he now, for the first time up to that time, accepted that the apartheid constitution could no longer be the basis of the South African society, because it was imposed by a white minority to take the lands and the rights of the blacks, and that is exactly what we have here. The Ijaw lost their lands and their oil and gas to Nigeria because some military president under Gowon seized it by decree. The Lagos port belongs to Lagos people. Nigeria takes more than 2 trillion naira from this port every year, but from independence to date, not one controller general of custom of Yoruba origin. And therefore, if Gani Adams now says, how did we come to this? And he pick up arms, the discussion that should be holding is one in which the government of the day will have to accept that this apartheid constitution can no longer be the basis of Nigeria. We are not anarchists. In the suit we filed in 2007 against the constitution, we asked the court to to give an order that will compel them within a period of 18 months to remain in office and work out that discussion that will lead to a new constitution. That's not too much to ask for, because South Africa did it. They accepted that the apartheid constitution had to go, and they called everybody.
Now, relying on them to work out a new constitution.
No, they are not saying working in that terms of reference. They say how to incorporate whatever.
I'm asking you how you intend to arrive at a new constitution.
How it will arrive at is that the people, those who are trapped here, before going to make a central constitution, because a federation should have, a federation is a federation of many constitutions. Up to 1966, we had 5 constitutions, because each of the federating units were like countries of their own that were now coming to cooperate, like Germany and France and Portugal during the European Union. That was the kind of constitution Awolowo had to manage Western region. That was the kind of constitution Obara had to manage Eastern region. But some people woke up in 1960s, threw all of those things away, and now locked us into this unitary arrangement. So we're saying that the first step is to ask those who will come, because tomorrow morning they will now begin to announce the names of their friends who are going to meet. We are not going to pay any attention to whatever government does. The conference is already on, and steps are being taken to take a referendum from those who are working their way out of this union, because the union has collapsed. If we do not accept in good time that it has collapsed and go to sit down to discuss how we will revive it, I tell you that under the instruments available to those who are choked here, and 3.5 million people have been killed in eastern Nigeria on this same question. OD have been wiped out, Okenekoko have been wiped out, Obakere have been wiped out. All kinds of things are going on. Just the other day, 78 students were massacred in their sleep, because some people must be in power in Nigeria. They say they will make the country ungovernable, and they are making it ungovernable to date. And we are still thinking that there's a Nigeria. That Nigeria that will include a Sharia belt in which I cannot function in Sokoto or Kano or Maiduguri. I will not be part of that Nigeria. I will rather invest all my energy in how to take out my portion. If those who are saying they have conquered us and they are going to keep us by all means for all times insist that we cannot discuss, then we do whatever comes within our reach to do to take our portion.
Now, let me ask you, Mr. Nadi, if at the end of the day we are having reactions from Afenifere, for instance, we are having reactions from Ohaneze people, we are having reactions from Arewa Consultative Forum,
with all
how be it speaking, saying that they do not, they will not agree for the name sovereign to be added to whatever conference. Now, let me ask you, would you say that these groups do not represent the blocks which they say they represent?
They do not speak for
and if you do not agree with their representation, who are the people that you are talking to at this, at this point about?
Back to 75%. Tambuwa said that all of them politicians constitute only 25%. He said it on the floor of National Assembly the day they resumed last week or so, that they constitute only 25% of the country's population. I'm here to speak on behalf of that unrepresented.
And the Arewa is not speaking for you.
They all have vested interests. They all have things they share with their people in government. What we're saying is that let us accept that Nigeria was not our making in 1914. Let us accept that the little discussion we had all the way to 1960 got toppled in 1966. Let us then accept that the product of that toppling, which is the current constitution, because from 1966 to date, all the 36 states that were created, who created them? Now they call me Abia State or Imo State or somebody else, Bayelsa State. There is none of the people in those places, like Delta State, cannot, the people of Delta in some areas were agitating for some autonomy. You now create a state and put the capital in Asaba. From that time to date, Delta State had not been the project of Ijo, Urobo, Ishekiri, and all of
Mr.
them.
Nadi, would you not rather wait? Let's just see.
No, there's no waiting.
No, because you have acknowledged that this is actually an act of statesmanship by the president.
I commend him. Who are going to a meeting in which Nigeria is held sacrosanct, in which somebody will write in the terms of reference that the outcome of the conference will be integrated into a constitution, meaning that they want to preserve that constitution by all means. And we are saying we will not touch one alphabet from inside this constitution. So these are the two grounds, these are the two positions that will have to be married over the next few days.
But in the event that this conference is convoked, yes, in the event that the different nationalities meet and do discourse,
yes,
would you now throw away all of that because your view can be seen as extreme? It is either all or nothing.
Do you think there is no halfway? There's no halfway in a matter of reconstruction. If you want to put a 40-story structure on this ground now, you know it will take it. But the first thing that will happen is that bulldozer has to enter here to level it, to be able to put up a new structure. Anything that is built on this foundation of falsehood, and if you will, let us take it down to our people. In saying that we the people, we're saying that we have submitted by ourselves. So it's a forged signature by which Nigeria is selling 3 million barrels of crude oil every day and sharing the money, $250 million every single day in Abuja to the exclusion of the owners. If you come to the provisions inside the Constitution, you then begin to see a chapter 2 that provides for all the good things of life, but a clause in section 60, and shame on the lawyers in Nigeria, including the justices of the Supreme Court, that will hold this document up and say those who wrote it have taken all of the content of the treasury as their own by that provision, to say that nothing is for the citizen except as they deem fit. That is the unjust.
So Samadi, before we let you go on this segment, like Victor asked, and yes, it's the heart of the matter.
The thing to do is
Nigerians come together
allow the ethnic nationality
and have this discussion without what they are saying, and this scales through.
If somebody,
what does that mean?
Abata held a conference. Obasanjo held a conference. What happened to them? Because somebody sat in Abuja, like David Mark is sitting, to tell us that it is how they do it that we have to accept. What we're saying is that they must accept that sovereignty belongs to the people and let them organize themselves and send those who they will truly wish to discuss their future for them in a conference that will end in a referendum.
Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. The next item on the agenda is synopsis of the topic. During the synopsis, we will observe a 1-minute silence on behalf of Otumba Shade Olukoya. Dr. Pakrebo, please, you have the floor for the synopsis.
Good evening, all. You're all welcome to another round of our joint NINAS radio on Clubhouse. This week's topic is entitled Union Dispute, why NINAS rejects the 2014 Confab report. But before we begin, it will be expedient to show some respect to all of our fallen heroines. Omoluabi Otumba Shade Olukoya, who joined our great ancestors some weeks back. To be proper to observe a minute silence for the repose of her soul. May the soul of the departed and those of other faithful rest in power. Amen. When the then President Goodluck Jonathan convoked the 2014 Confab, he had good intentions of finding lasting solutions to the contemporary political, fiscal, and communal problems besieging the country, as it were. To him, convoking a national conference to discuss how to find a lasting solution would have been the best bet. It delegated the functions to other officers when the committee was set up. Of course, these officers had vested interest, and from the outset, they did what they felt was necessary that would make them to continue to have that iron grip on what they've put in place by making the real owners slaves. From NINA's campaign for over 24 years on what should be done as the way forward can be explicitly captured in section 14 subsection 2A of the same fraudulent constitution, which states clearly that sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom government, through this constitution, derives all his powers and authority. There's no doubt about that. But why then will the composition of the delegates to the 2014 Confab that was stage managed by the government of the day made it in such a way that the owners of the land were excluded so that they will not have any say in the discussion? Why was it the particular part of the terms of reference spotlighted to say that whatever that was discussed at the confab will be co-opted into the constitution? We already know that that's the basis of the problem of Nigeria, a faulty foundation. So whatever that will be discussed, we now go back to reinforce our slavery. So all this and others were the reasons NINAS isolated herself from 2014 Confab report, knowing that it was flawed from the very first day Jonathan convoked it. So for people to come now, 10 years after, to say that it is the 2014 Confab report that will be used in writing another constitution, it's laughable, because the mandate to make constitution lies solely with the owners of the land, the people, not the cowboys like the deputy speaker of House of Reps, Benjamin Kanu, and some of his friends from his ranch are saying that under 24 months they are going to churn out another constitution. So you can really see that there's a battle line drawn between people who want to enforce the unitary government that has been in place since 1966, and the true owners of the land whose lands have been expropriated, who have been locked in prisons with chains in their hands, manacles, so that they don't have any say. What NINAS is saying is simply this: sovereignty belongs to the people. As such, it's only the people that can ask for a renegotiation and reconstruction of the system that has failed. Either we want to federate, and in what terms? Anything outside it will go up in smoke. Without much ado, I yield the mic.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pakrebo, for that insightful synopsis. At this point, I'm honored to invite the NINAS spokesperson, Mr. Tony Nadi, to take us further into this section. Please, sir, you have the floor. Mr. Nadi, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Welcome everybody once more. The broadcast we just listened to was recorded in 2013, the day after President Jonathan inaugurated announced the committee. I think it was on 1st of October, in October of 2013, when President Jonathan, after much pressure from us, from this same project, because we did engage all of those that had to be engaged, the nationalities, the international, stakeholders in Nigeria, and the government of Nigeria. Even before President Jonathan, we never ceased to place something on the table and to find a way to getting the government to say something or do something or engage it in some way. Obasanjo did go to make broadcasts in his own presidency, in his own time, when the project was at the level of consultations that had matured into a conference of the sovereign constituent components of Nigeria, the nationalities that make up Nigeria. And when we announced that we were going to have that conference, having waited for government for over 4 years, it came in 1999, and 2003 came, they had another election. So sometime in 2004, we did announce that the nationalities that are choking in a unitary Nigeria had now come to where they will have to hold a meeting, an unfettered discussion among themselves, to decide whether or not they will want to federate going forward. And if the answer is yes, on what terms? Obasanjo's response to that announcement was to go on national broadcast to say that if such meeting, such a conference gets convened, conference of the peoples of Nigeria, because we were clear that, and we did say so at the time, Nohoro leading, that sovereignty belongs to the people, and that the question of constitution making is the exclusive preserve of the peoples of Nigeria to do, and that the constitution by which their lives were being ruined at the time was an imposition that had no input from them. The military, by decree, exhumed the 1979 edition, which they had also imposed by decree. Obasanjo was president at the time. Murtala Mohammed had commissioned it. It was simply the victory charter from the war of 1967-70 that they now, more or less codified what they had, and somehow summoned the Constituent Assembly in 1977. Of course, Murtala Mohammed had been taken out in 1976 by his co-travelers. And then Obasanjo saw to it that the draft that had been made before the conference, the Constituent Assembly was called, Obasanjo saw to it that that draft emerged exactly as Murtala Mohammed wanted it. Who would have written such instructions that became that draft, which Rotimi Williams invited Ben Wabese to come and help him craft? So we're taking you back to how we landed in this ditch in which Nigeria is currently trapped, and that it was from such a dubious origin that the 1979 Constitution came, because Obasanjo then overruled the Constituent Assembly with 17 amendments that he announced in September of 1978, September 21, on national TV, to say that all of what those 17 amendments took away everything the Constituent Assembly changed in the draft that Mwabese and Rotimi Williams had submitted to government. And so Nigeria came out with exactly what the Caliphate wanted in 1979 as constitution. Obasanjo being their, their head slave errand boy that made sure he topped it up by coronating a Fulani, Shehu Shagari, as president, even where he didn't win the election. They had to do the kind of thing that happened in 2023 presidential election. They just murdered the constitution that was not yet, it's a 12 to 3 that, something that they made an intricate calculation that was just a fraud to install a Fulani man president, having installed a constitution that rendered Nigeria a caliphate, just another caliphate of the Fulani. And so we came all the way through everything that went on 79 for 20 years. 1999, Obasanjo comes, and after much pressure, because we did engage to the point where he pretended initially he said he needed more time to settle down, and we kept doing what we could to prepare the ground for how we go to that inevitable meeting. Then his response was to go when we got tired of waiting for him, and that constitution was more or less being reinforced every day you allowed it, because the alarm was raised within 3 weeks. Very serious alarm within 3 weeks of the election that brought Obasanjo in 1999 to say we can't build this democracy, in fact this union, on this constitution. It wasn't our making. It's not working. It hasn't worked for us all this while. It's not going to work for us now. But we realized we needed to talk to the nationalities, get them somewhat to that understanding, so that they could realize what was wrong with their society. Everything was dying off. All the institutions, all the everything that belonged to government that was working, whether it was airlines of the Nigerian Airways, or the shipping line, or the railway, or the port, everything that was working well. The currency had plunged from $4 to ₦1, all the way to where we were now counting practically hundreds of naira to be able to get $1. And so everything was in free fall. And then we raised the issue to say, it is this bad arrangement that we imposed on ourselves since 1979 that have brought us to this, because the states they created were still there. The local government areas they multiplied were still there, just conduit pipe for stealing of money. And the response of Obasanjo was to go on national broadcast to say that it will amount to treason if we went on that exercise of a meeting of the people. But at that point in 2004, it was because we had waited for 5 years for the government to come along. And they were sitting in Abuja, now more or less asserting themselves in sovereignty over us. Federal government that now owned everybody, couldn't raise any issue. We'll beat you up. So we called his bluff and went on with what we were doing. When he saw the number of people, the kind of people who had come to join, because we had mobilized, we had traveled everywhere we needed to travel, and he saw that the people who were coming to join us were not the kind of people he will say he's going to molest in any way. You were going to arrest Enohoro. You were going to arrest Soyinka. You were going to arrest Ojukwu. You were going to arrest even this Buhari fellow, who had been head of state before and who was now contesting election as civilian, was part of the Fulani delegation that turned up. The fellow that became Sultan later, was his name as the one that is still there, was his name Syed Abubakar. He was a colonel in the army at the time. He was a heir to the throne, even as Abubakar, everybody, he was known. And so when you looked around the country and you saw the kind of people that came from everywhere, it became clear to Obasanjo that he couldn't stop the owners of Nigeria from meeting amongst themselves to review their union and the terms of their union. Two different things. You remember I said before that when the Constitution came, we said we couldn't build this union and its democracy. Two different things. Two different things. What's the difference? In the first part, you are talking about whether we want to be in union at all. In the second part, you are not talking about the terms of that union, assuming that a majority say let's continue in some way. Those two questions were the things Bola Ige said we must pause as a country and answer. Do we want to carry on in this union? Because it wasn't our union in 1914 when the British imposed it on us. It hadn't been allowed to become our union because the discussions that happened in Lancaster House were toppled again in 1966, particularly in 1997 when the 4 regions got fractured into 12 states. And so, with what Obasanjo said, we carried on. Of course, he had the sense to dress back And we came out with what the nationality is 2 whole years. The US sent observer mission, European Union sent observer mission. And we took all the questions, starting with the question of, do we want to be in union? Of course, the majority said yes, but that but was now where you brought your reasons for, your own objections or for wanting a different arrangement. And before we even finally convened at the conference, we had the regional blocks making out their draft positions, because it is those regional blocks that will become the federation if they all agree to federate and they settle the terms of that federating. And so it was always, it always had to be a 2-stage procedure. Yoruba sat at home and came up with what they considered their own charter. I'm sure some of us have seen the document before, and we're going to send it on the platform so you can see at least the back cover. When you read what is there, you will see the date on it, 2004. Sorry, 1994. That was what they had written at the time Abiola was prevented from being president, and they wrote a charter to say they will leave this union except it becomes a union of accommodation once again. So by the time we were coming in 2004 to summon the Pinnacle Conference, they updated it and came with something that could become constitution for them if the union agreement, if we can't find common ground. From the east, we had something, except that the people, Wazirika and his mashup, were saying that they don't agree with the rest of the Igbo to carry on in Nigeria. Everybody came with some charter or the other from all the sides. And so we began to reconcile all of those, disagreements and divergences. It was reduced to 29 points that had to questions that had to be answered by the conference. But the first being, do we want to carry on in recognition of the fact that the constitution that was imposed could not remain basis of union? It was just being tolerated for the sake of peace until we conclude our discussions, whether government came or not. At the end of the day, we came through with something that became basis of now going to launch an attack on that constitution. That was the suit that went to court in 2007, challenging the legitimacy of that constitution, because we say it is a lie that we the people solemnly resolve to live in unity as indivisible country. It's also a lie that we then made a constitution, wrote and gave unto ourselves that constitution. The government of the day, of course, the transition had happened by the time the matter was being taken. The judge didn't know what to do. She went up and down. They went to the president, and the president sent the president of the time that took over from Obasanjo, Yaradua, sent Bola Ahmed Tinubu to the group that had taken this drastic measure. Enough standing in front. But the one speaking with you now was in the inner core of what our answer back to that president was. That we must now stop in some way. We have no quarrel with you if you want us to discuss this matter. Otherwise, we carry on. The nationalities own the sovereignties that are confiscated into Nigeria. If you want us to discuss this matter, you have to go and announce that this constitution, like Frederick de Klerk did in 1990, that this constitution cannot carry Nigeria any further. There must be a time bound. These same demands, these same propositions that have now come by way of the force majeure of December 2020, those were the things sent back to Yaradua before he formed the government in 2007. And it was Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who was governor in Lagos, that he sent to come to plead with us to join his government so that from inside we can begin to discuss this, because the way we went after the constitution, that the country will collapse on everybody. Of course, he had his reasons for taking that approach, because he said that if not for Enohoro, that his father, the Yaradua that was minister in the First Republic, would not have come to the cabinet, that there was nobody from the Katsina area. He said that if that same Enohoro that went against everybody at the time to insist that the Katsina will not be represented by the Sokoto Fulani, because they had these aristocrats and their cattle keepers, you know, there's that internal schism between all of them. And so Yaradua the Umoru was saying that if not for Enohoro, in the time they were forming a government, having won an election, there was nobody from that entire Katsina Axis. That it was Enohoro that insisted that they should bring whoever they have to be trained. They sent him off to the UK, brushed him up, and then created a Ministry of Lagos Affairs just to bring him into cabinet level position. He became Minister for Lagos Affairs. And so Musa Yaradua is the father of the Shehu Yaradua that became Obasanjo's second in command, and Umaru Yaradua that became president. And so Umaru was saying, I have become president now. But it was because there was the Yaradua dynasty. Not that didn't start with Shehu, the general. Shehu became who he became because there was Musa, their father. And so if that's a Enohoro that went against everybody to insist that they can train somebody and make him minister, is now saying that there's an unfinished business at the foundation of that union, that even God himself will be angry with him if he does not wait and listen to that Enohoro and try to see how to solve whatever he says is the problem at the foundation we're building upon. It was on that premise that he sent Bola Tinubu, this same one that has become the interim president from an inconclusive election under a dubious constitution. Yaradua offered 5 ministerial slots, 10 ambassadorial positions. Something say, look, all of you organizing Pronaco, all of you have gone to this court. Please, 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 let the public not hear it. This constitution will collapse and all of us will be in a mess. But we sent our response. The reason I'm telling this story, the reason I'm bringing these details to the public is that we have come to the point in that entire discussion where if we do not navigate differently, if people are still thinking that they can sit in Abuja and dictate, if people are still thinking that it doesn't matter, what can they do? Like the lunatic that was governor in Jigawa said a few years ago. What was his name again? I can't remember. The one that said, I think somebody Lamido, that said that they have so burdened the peoples of Nigeria with poverty that there's nothing that the elite are united in keeping the Nigeria the way they organize it, and that they will not allow anybody to break it or do anything that will dismantle it. He was asking whether it's the organizer in Asaba or the yam seller in Ibadan or the pepper, you know. He was talking down on the populace, on the peoples of Nigeria, that they are no longer able to think straight because of what they've been burdened by poverty so much. And that's their confidence, that the people cannot do anything. They know that what they are doing is wrong, but who will challenge us? That's their thinking. And so it was in that kind of a setting that we said, let us set a time frame that will be announced to the public as basis of coming to work with that time frame. And because we had filed the matter in court, the Attorney General of Nigeria joined issues with us that came to represent government in court in that suit, challenging the legitimacy of the Constitution. The Attorney General admitted our charge in writing. And so the only thing he wanted to rely on is the question of local standard. Because he said that the issue we raised as to whether or not we the people made that constitution, and if we didn't make it, of course, what the consequences will be. He said that everything we put there were taken from the constitution, that we just invited the court to interpret between the preamble that claimed that we made the constitution and the decree number 24 that they had printed in error in the constitution that was gazetted, as they were doing hide and seek to swear in Obasanjo without anybody seeing the constitution. They then printed the evidence of our charge is in black and white inside that constitution, gazetted and given to the countries of the world. So there was no way of, in this same obduracy you see today, instead of pulling back to go to discuss what should happen, they then went and printed, when we raised the issue, they went and printed a second version. When they saw that we had raised the issue against that, the origins of that constitution, they printed a second version, removing that whole story, because the original instruction in the decree is that it should never be printed. It's written in the decree number 24 that everything relating to the decree should not be printed by federal government press. But they didn't go to federal government press because they were doing hide and seek. They went to a place they call Heritage Press, owned by Ibrahim Babangida. In that period, he wasn't sure whether he was going home or hanging to come back. So it was in that, of course, what's his name? This quota Professor Awalu Yadudu was the midwife in that dark business of going to print illicit constitution in Heritage Press instead of federal government press. We have to know all of this to understand the depth of the engagement on this subject. There are people who think, who knows these people, they don't have anything to do with their time. We have engaged all the monsters. We have engaged all the principalities and powers and demons that have plunged this country into this darkness that is enveloping it. And we now have to enforce the consensus that have been built against those who impose that constitution and the constitution itself. So back to where the video I had to give you the backdrop to the broadcast we listened to, so that in 2013, when that interview was going on, we had pressured President Jonathan when he had taken over from Yar'Adua, because Yar'Adua took ill, and that discussion that should have carried on didn't quite get anywhere. And so the Jonathan that took over from him met that situation while it was still boiling. Ijoland had become land of agitation. Everyone was up in smoke. Yoruba land was yet to settle from the one of OPC. In the eastern side, it was Biafra all over the place. The middle belt was under siege. And so, the Jonathan that they were trying to block from coming to office, he saw that the issues we were raising were the same things that are now were playing out. So that people said they will make Nigeria ungovernable if one of them will not be president. And so Jonathan was compelled by the circumstances of the time to listen. And by the time he took the trouble to examine all of what we placed on the table, he came to the conclusion that this matter was far worse than what he perceived before from afar, and that there was really no point carrying on without sorting out the matter. That was the origin, that was how the campaign for sovereign conference became reality. That is to say, call a meeting of the owners of Nigeria to discuss how they will rework their union. And Jonathan expressly pointed, and we're going to find, some way to bring excerpts from his written mandate, the speech by which he inaugurated the Femi Okoromo Committee, because he referred that committee to the foundations of Nigeria in 1914. It was specific. And in 1960, he said, let this conference go and look at those foundations and see where this thing that is now, after so many years, we cannot bond together as a country. Because of what he has seen, because we showed him the documents we got from, the British archives and all kinds of places, he then saw that Nigeria was designed to fail. And so, in referring them to that, to the foundations, the people who were bent on getting rid of him so that they could replace him in government house drew up their own plans. Unfortunately, our own, one of our own willing tools, who happened to be secretary to government at the time, went into some kind of alliance with that caliphate, helping them to change the modalities of what could have produced a different outcome from that conference. When you listen to that broadcast, you will then see it was the change of the modalities, these two-stage modalities that that we had confronted Obasanjo with, confronted Yar'Adua with, that Jonathan was willing to, give a chance to be used. They changed it to a one-stage procedure in which everybody will be invited to Abuja. They will come and hold a meeting, and then the terms of reference that finally emerged was one in which the outcome will be integrated into the 1999 constitution that we were rejecting. Unfortunately for them, they will have gone further in their mischief. But one fellow called David Bonaventure Mark had run he was Senate president at the time. He was boasting this type of stupidity of Benjamin Kalu of today. He was boasting that, if you guys insist on an election, on a conference, you have a conference, but whatever you decide in the conference will be integrated into the Constitution of Nigeria. And so, it was in that boast that they all worked behind the scenes to alter the modalities. And so we who had been pressuring for this discussion to solve this matter could not proceed beyond that point. We said to them, and that was why I had to go to TV within 24 hours, to say, this conference that you want to do this way is not going to be a meeting, is not at all a meeting, because they were now nominating all kinds of characters from everywhere. If you dress like Urobo man, they invited you. If you dress like Yoruba, they asked you to come. Or we're having a meeting in Abuja. Whereas the two-stage procedure is to get back to the question of who are the we that are going to federate. You have to identify the Yoruba as owners of Yoruba land, Ijo as owners of Ijo land. They must agree among themselves that they want to federate with Fulani. They want to federate with Igbo. It is in that agreement which you have to ratify by referendum if you have to credit it to their people. Some way, it must be their decision. And they come with a map of their territory with some consensus, however they reach it, with constituent powers that will be given to those who go to represent them in the wider meeting. So the first stage of this two-stage thing we're talking about is in accepting that we do not have a constitution right now. We're just here by the goodwill of everybody that have mixed up for so long. We have no union right now. We have a country. A country is just geographical expression defining a boundary. All of the land between Sokoto, Maiduguri, Port Harcourt, and Lagos, all of that land is recognized as Nigeria. But whether the peoples of that land, the Ijaw, the Ogoni, the Edo, the Isekiri, the Yoruba, the Berom, the Tiv, have agreed to be in one political union. That's where the problem is. The country is there, landmass. But it's union at gunpoint because they have not agreed to be. Everybody is being, quarantined and, locked down by some brutal force. At times, little deceit. And so, they went the opposite way, did what they wanted to do. We stayed away, and we told them that the conference would lead to nothing, since they do not want to involve the owners of the sovereignty. At the end of the day, it collapsed on their head because it didn't go anywhere. Now, as to where we are today, to let you all know, to let us all know that we have succeeded in what we set out to do. The constitution is defeated. Then they began to think of what to do because they didn't understand. They thought all these many years, they thought that once the constitution, anything has to be done, that is the National Assembly that will do it. In their ignorance, which we have suffered from their ignorance for so many years on all kinds of subjects. On this occasion, we are going to harvest abundantly from that ignorance. Awalu Yadudu, the one that midwifed the constitution, was the first to wake up to what might happen. He was the first to realize that the onslaught we were waging against that constitution will end the union, will terminate the union, the unitary union they were enforcing on us. So he raised the alarm when we were putting finishing touches to the force majeure proclamation in the middle about July of 2020. Say, government, if you don't stop these people and they do this thing, that it will unhinge the legal basis of the Federation of Nigeria. That was what we set out to do from 1999. To unhinge the legal basis of the atrocious entity that feeds on the blood of its people, impoverishing people who should be living in affluence. And so they couldn't stop us. We went on with the force majeure. Of course, consultations had to continue because both the government and the people, many didn't understand what it was. And if we didn't move in the manner we moved, explaining to everybody, there are things we could have done to escalate the matter suddenly. But it will all end up in Somalia because everybody will jump up from their own neighborhood. You saw what happened in Ibadan the other day, where people who don't understand the head and tail of anything, just hearing that the constitution has been defeated, jumped forward to go and take over the seat of government. They didn't know where we separated the first leg of delegitimization. You can see how long it took us to bring it to where everybody now accepts that the constitution has a fault, it's a problem that has to be solved. Then, after the delegitimization, we go into the decommissioning. That's what we have just stepped into. We haven't even gone halfway. It is after that decommissioning, when the peoples of the land will have joined us openly, that we go to the dismantling. That's where you now begin to put dates for when a new order will replace what was there before. Any part you choose to jump, like they jumped in Ibadan, you end up in fiasco. And so, the government and the political party people and all of the proprietors of Nigeria and all the caliphate of Nigeria and their willing tools from our midst, they realized too late that the collapse of that the defeat of that constitution was the end of the union anchored on it. And they saw that if they didn't do something very quickly, that the owners of the sovereignty do not even require a meeting. This meeting where you come and we are less than, I don't know how many we are today, they are following, they are studying every one word we utter, all those broadcasts. We get feedback from where they review them, at times in faraway London, in Sokoto Palace, in Kano Palace. We know that all the think tanks they have, they try to interpret, because they are now, we encircle them in the way we approach the matter. The nationalities now know that the sovereignty belongs to them, and that constitution that did not emanate from them cannot remain basis of union. How are you going to replace it? We place the 5-point proposition for how it can be done to the accommodation of all. It is in their desperation to evade it that they began to throw up all kinds of things. The first thing, the National Assembly wanted to go alone. We shut them down when they advertised amendments that will address all the grievances we raised in the force majeure. Then they began another plan for how to expand the consultation to look like it included the people. That was how they brought the colloquium of Akpabio with Tinubu present, and Olisa Bakoba, their headmaster, coming to teach them the jurisprudence, guide them on the Appian way to proceed to writing a constitution without reference to the owners of the sovereignty. He was citing Ben Wabeze, who had recanted from the earlier bad position he held on the subject since 2013. Olisa was talking in 2023 December. Of course, we fired back at him same day to say he was ignorant, he was illiterate, he was being dishonest, because we had explained this thing to him a number of times. Himself and all the other kinds of Ozekome kind of people and Falana kind of people, we had explained all these things to them to the point where we will not allow them any room of operation in the public space anymore on this subject. Everywhere they turn up, you saw Ise Sage the other day. Everywhere they turn up, we will tell everybody that they are ignorant, that they are illiterate on that subject. If they want a debate, they will then come, so that we can teach them in public what they refuse to learn in private. And so, that second attempt of expanding the discussion to make it look like it was by popular public demand that the National Assembly now went to replace the Constitution, standing on some dubious provision Olisa was pointing them to, Section 4 to Section 1. He told them they had the power to do it. And whatever was left, he also created another theory that the president of Nigeria is the embodiment of the sovereignty. So if there's anything the National Assembly does not have the power to do, that the president is there to make up. Of course, it didn't take more than that one rejoinder to demolish him and his students, the National Assembly people and the executive branch. Because the Senate president was there taking note. The president was there, their president was there taking note. And they both committed to doing what he said. When that one was shut down, they again looked up. Their credibilities had been destroyed. Who did they find? Emeka Anyoko and the Patriots. And who are the Patriots? Imagine that the last chairman of Patriots was Ben Wabeze. That will tell you who is in that. I'm sure you heard in the broadcast you listened to before this, as we opened this meeting. You had the name of Patriots in that broadcast in that interview of 2013. You had the name of Wabeze in that broadcast, because they were the ones who were saying Nigerianity. That is that the question of whether we want to be in union or we don't want to be in union cannot be taken. That was what they called Nigerianity, as they were subscribing to the conference, that it should not proceed to where we are now questioning whether or not. And so, if in 2023, if in 2024, we are still discussing a patriots that will gather in Lagos colloquium and bring an Ozekome to begin to rehash the lecture of Olisa Bakoba of December 23, 2020, December in 2023. Compare what Olisa Bakoba was saying in Abuja and what Ozekome was trying to sell to them in Lagos. The same thing, just that they wanted to give it another coloration, and they zeroed in on 2014 conference that did not discuss the problem. But they want to bring it from the back door because we have pinned them down to where we insist that the owners of the sovereignties are the ones that will discuss to be in union or not. And if no meeting is called, that they are entirely at liberty to move away with their lands. They are entirely at liberty to retake their economic assets. They are entirely at liberty to pick up guns because it's the constitution we have defeated that prevented them before. You couldn't come from Mauritania and Mali and wherever you came from to come to shoot them in their communities. You already took their lands as a oil block, port concession. You shared their lands among themselves. Yourselves, you impose the land use decree by which all the choice lands were now shared over the heads of the owners. Until today, because of that constitution that is housing that land use decree in an impregnable part, you can't even amend the part where they put it together with NYSC Act because you require 4/5 majority to touch them. No matter the quantity of land you have in your community or wherever you have it, if the governor does not sign your CFO, that land is useless in your hand for the purpose of raising capital. Go and try it with any bank. Why is it government, somebody in government house, that will sign to give value to your land? Meanwhile, you can't find anything underneath that land and be able to take it. It belongs to federal government. So they have taken everything that has value. These are all the things flowing from that constitution. The land you are counting in your community as belonging to you. Go and approach a bank today to say, I have 5,000 plots of land. It is worth 50 billion or 500 billion. Can you give me 5 billion so that I can build 50 houses? As a start of hold whatever be my document, but give me just 5 billion. The bank will not advance one dime to you if they do not see a CFO. And where do you get CFO from? How did your land become the property of people who may, in the days of when the military was, it could be one Lieutenant Colonel Zubairu or another Major Abdul Kadir that will be governor in Rivers or elsewhere. Go and check the title deeds. If you buy land in GRA of Port Harcourt today, go and check the who and who has sold to who. Go and check where this is, whose name is on the title deed that now got passed on to you. You will see who and who took all those lands in all these 40 years that is approaching 50. They shared everything among themselves, gave out the solid and liquid minerals underneath as concessions. Wherever they find anything, you lose the land immediately because it doesn't belong to you ab initio. And so that 2014 conference was where they announced stop. The reason I'm speaking the way I'm speaking is that those who do not understand where they are running helter-skelter to try to avoid discussion with you, the owners of the land, because if we go to that two-stage procedure, all these things I'm telling you about the first thing is that constitution is out of the way. Therefore, your land reverts to you. Otafan will revert to the people of Obasanjo took it from. Interest in Port Harcourt will revert to the communities that own that land. The limestone of Benue will refer to the owners of the place where Dangote is digging and becoming Africa's billionaire, the greatest rich man. concessions upon concessions upon concessions of estates, vast assets belonging to other people, the ports that are concessioned. And so the collapse of that, the defeat of that constitution has brought us to where those things are on the table. They do not want to discuss with the owners of those things. They know that the owners don't yet know. They are terrified that if the owners get to know, they won't survive another month. So they use all kinds of people. The media, number one, to block this information from getting anywhere. The church leaders, number two, to block the populace from getting to know. And all kinds of middlemen, the political party people, telling them about the election and how great leadership will emerge. Characters like Peter Obi and all of those doing APC and PDP from across these alliance territories. And so it is in their desperation, they're in a mess. They're in an absolute mess. It is in the desperation to avoid having to deal with the owners of these assets that they have detained for over 54 since 1967, basically, that they now want to fall back to that 2014 conference, that the mandate was tied to this constitution we are rejecting. The representation was on account of the states and local government areas, again flowing back to that constitution we reject, and they themselves at that conference deciding not to visit the foundation as mandated by the convener, Jonathan. On those three grounds, that 2014 conference, completely unusable, didn't address the issue, cannot be brought to pretend now that the people, because what Ozekome was doing in Lagos, the way he was polishing and praising that conference as having brought everybody that was important in Nigeria and that they exhausted everything that needed to be discussed, it was because they were trying to pretend that the peoples of Nigeria have discussed. But from what I've explained to you now, the discussion of people you gather from marketplace, because they look like, they bear names that look like, it must be two stages. Those who want to federate will have to decide and mandate those who discuss with other people who have also decided to federate in the two stages. Anything short of those two stages, we will be opposed to any kind of meeting. In fact, we will ignore any meeting, and because our sovereignty is back on the table, just that our people need to be woken up to take their portions on their own terms and go from the union of death, go through the prison gate. We have that gate that Yadudu was saying will be unhinged. The legal basis of Nigeria will be unhinged. Is that the prison gate, the caliphate prison gate, will be unhinged. The gate is no longer there. We are now to summon our people from the cells where they've been holding them to make their way to that gate. Especially if no meeting is called. We're not pressing them, we're not begging them to go and call meeting. No. We have been holding meeting. When they refuse to hold meeting, we held our own meeting. The outcome is what we want to enforce now, that we have no union. We went to court, they had no answer. They admitted our case. Wanted to hide under a local standard. It failed because the Supreme Court said anything that has to do with constitution, any citizen can go to court. That was where the attempt of the Attorney General of the time to block us from challenging the legitimacy of the constitution failed. So the judge was helpless, like in a match where the goalkeeper is injured and you can't change him. That's where Nigeria is now. They have no answer whatsoever to that challenge. And that is the union itself. They didn't understand the constitution to mean the union. They thought that constitution is only all of the contents, 36 states and 7 local areas and 8 items of exclusive list and corruption provisions. They thought that that's all it is. So if one part goes bad, they go and write another. They did not know all these years that the constitution is the union, first and foremost. That is, we the people have solemnly resolved to live together. If you remove that part, if it turns out to be a lie, you have no union. I'm sure we had Ayo Adebanjo saying it in Lagos Colloquium, that we have no union. I'm sure we had Kingsley Moghalu saying it in his interview. We have a country, we don't have a nation. I'm sure we have had Professor Akinwale, the Catholic priest, saying we have no nation, we have no union. That's a union at gunpoint that we have now. And so they have tried to go alone, it didn't work. They tried Lagos Colloquium, it failed. They tried the NCEF, Nigerian Christian Elders Forum platform. Again, you saw that in the original memo, in the document that NCEF brought to present to the press in their press conference. The first item there was inviting everybody to come to 2014 conference report to replace the Constitution. That was, they worked with the knowledge they had, but they had the presence of mind to admit us, invite us to their conference, to also tell the country what we thought would be the better solution. They were looking for solution. And so at the time we explained what was wrong and what needed to be done, not only did they abandon the wrong thing they came with, they embraced what we brought and wrote it down in a communique. Where we are now is that I'm sure many of us saw the gathering of the former heads of state, including Absalom Abubakar and the rest of them, all the way to Jonathan, and the National Assembly people and the governors, where they were now talking about state police. They have all agreed they are going to do state police. The same desperation. This is now the fourth different attempt to open some kind of leeway to get into something that will involve the National Assembly. It's an emergency now. Security has become an emergency. And so they think that, well, if all of us agree, we'll go and do it very quickly. And I'm sure some of us have seen what we wrote in response to them, that no piecemeal approach will work of amendment. We have to accept we do not have a constitution, meaning that we do not have a union, and go into transition forthwith to deal with the matter. And if we're not doing that, be ready to receive the unilateral actions of those who will, the owners of the sovereignties, that will have to make their own way out of the union of death that Nigeria has become for them. And so I think we can stop here for today. The purpose of the town hall of today is to let you know that they have exhausted. They are going to continue to throw up all kinds of things to try to, but I tell you, the avenues of escape that they thought were available to them have all been blocked by what we are doing. And in the days ahead, we are going to now proceed into our own programs that have been waiting to be activated when they finish their errors. I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the detailed clarifications. It's time for questions and comments. Please, if you have comments or you want to ask any question, kindly tap your mic twice or raise your hand and you'll be asked to speak. Thank you. Question, comments? Yes, Shola, you have the floor.
I just wanted to ask, from what I just heard from Tony, do the political actors realize where they are? The reason I'm asking is because of what they have to lose, won't they be looking for ways?
Hello, sorry, I think Shola, I will interrupt you. This is an official forum. It's either we address him as Mr. Nadi or the NINAS spokesperson. I think while going through past recordings, I've been so irritated when people call him by his name. Even if it's your younger brother, this is an official forum. Please, let's be guided. Thank you.
Okay. My question is to the comments from Mr. Nadi. do the political actors realize that avenues are blocked, and knowing what they imagine and know that they could lose, are we not considering what they might try to do, or ways they might look for to try to extricate themselves from this issue they find themselves in?
You sound now like you are sympathizing with their terrible condition. They know, but they are obdurate, they are arrogant, and it was their ignorance that founded their arrogance. Ignorance in the sense that they did not understand that the Constitution was the union all the while. And we did not make any efforts to explain that aspect to them. So they were now dealing with only the contents of the Constitution as people were complaining about one thing or the other. They did not advert their minds to the fact that if the Constitution goes down, before you go to the contents, you deal with the question of whether we have submitted ourselves into the union. And so it becomes something that there's really nothing they can do now. Either we have a union or we don't have a union. As at this moment, except something changes, we do not have a union. Except something changes, and I don't see how that thing can change. The sovereignty of Yoruba people belong to Yoruba people. Their land is their own. They are not on exile. They are at home, occupying that land, unchallenged by any other group. The same with the Ijaw and the Igbo and the rest, all the way to the Middle Belt, our first concern. And so, no matter what, they've done all the coups they can do. All these years they were toppling government for wearing military uniform was because they were trying to preserve what they had. Every time you came to challenging it, they would go and behead all kinds of people. But now, the people they had used as willing tools, Beron people are being killed. Gowon cannot do anything. Taraba people, Joko people are being killed. Danjuma cannot do anything. Yoruba people are being killed. Obasanjo cannot do anything. So who are they going to? Who are the they that will now? How are they going to come together? The lunatic called Lamido of Sule Lamido that says they have burdened people with so much poverty nobody can think through. Let him come now and speak for them that we have asphyxiated. We have taken the oxygen out of that constitution. It is brain dead. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? It is because they have found out that there's nothing they can do. We are accusing them of treason. You saw what they did with the people talking Biafra. You see what they did with the Igbo talking Odua and all of that. But what can they do with what we are doing? What can they do or say? People who go to share money with them can be summoned to EFCC. We kept this project completely beyond their reach from the first day. And so they can't offer any blackmail, they can't offer any threat because the soldiers and policemen that carry the guns all come from one part or the other. And they have all now been awakened. Before, you couldn't say, oh, Fulani did anything wrong. They say, oh, don't talk about ethnicity, don't talk about religion. But every time Fulani kills, it is because you are not Fulani that they are killing you. And then they wear the garment of religion. Say, oh, Islam or nothing. So it is Islam, it is religion, it is Fulani, it is ethnicity that has brought us to where we are. because they manage to make taboo out of it. Don't say. If you talk about anything ethnicity, they will, just find a way to present you as a small-minded bigot, accuse you of bigotry, religious sentiment. But between the two, when they gather in their mosques to pass instruction, that's religion. When Fulani go to kill, they don't spare even the Muslims from that north. So where is that jihad? If you have to kill a Hausa Muslim or Kanuri Muslim. And so there's really nothing. We are not strangers to where they plan. So there's nothing they're going to do. The only thing we need to do is to wake up our people, to get them to step into their inalienable right to self-determination. The land is theirs, the sovereignty is theirs, and therefore the right to live in peace in those lands cannot be taken away from them, no matter how offended anybody might be, no matter how angry anybody might get in any place, including Buckingham Palace and Downing Street. They can only send Peter Obi to come and cause confusion at a time he wasn't challenged. But I'm sure that they know they have an uphill task to be able to summon people to go to another election under that constitution in 2027, because we are going to problematize it. It has to be a matter of street fight. It's cheaper for us to do street fight with them than to wait for when Fulani will come with AK-47 into our space. They can't, there's nothing they can do now. The guns that Buhari had did not save the situation for them. Is it now Tinubu that is going to rally them to go and beat all of us down? They are in trouble. That was what they, so we gave them escape. We said they either surrender unconditionally to these propositions, or they will be defeated comprehensively by the owners of the sovereignties they've been sitting on. That will be my answer.
Thank you, sir. Any more comments or questions, please? Okay, in the absence of any further question or comments, please, Ndidi, you have the floor for key points.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, tonight's topic was union dispute. Why NINAS, which is we the indigenous ethnic nations of the NINAS territory, why are we rejecting the 2014 Confab report? Well, where we are is that we're sort of like under occupation by the Fulani, and behind them, of course, the Crown, the British Crown. And their power and their instrument is that 1999 Constitution. And we can see from what was said today that the enemy, they know that their power is that 1999 Constitution. So what they've done is that they have been, over the years, burdening Nigerians with poverty and with lack, so that you're always, busy looking for money for this and that. Look at transport system, look at the roads, no traffic lights for you to cross safely. So there's just a lot of stress, and that is all done on purpose. And what, so that they don't focus on the real problem. And what the problem is that who are the we, who are the so-called we that are in this hoax union called Nigeria, and that we need to settle, because sovereignty belongs to the indigenous ethnic nations on their ancestral land. So we need to settle that. And this problem has been there since 1967. And what we as NINAS have been saying is that let us set a time frame to sort out this problem so that it doesn't drag on and on, because it's 54 years or more now. So let us set a time frame, because as the time goes on and on. They keep on stealing. Dangote is able to be the richest man in Africa because he's stealing through using the 1999 Constitution. All of them are stealing using that 1999 Constitution because it's a forgery. So it's a robbery. So we need to set a time frame. And we who are NINAS, we didn't just start today. We've been engaging the leadership since 1999, the various leadership that we've had. We've been engaging them. Pronaco was mentioned. Then the Confab, which is the 2014 conference, it was supposed to be under certain modalities. That even the Goodluck Jonathan, he led the conference. He said that they could look at the foundations of Nigeria. And that was one of the instructions that were given to the Okurumi committee of that 2014 conference. But the modalities were changed. And some of the people who changed it were the secretary of the government at the time. And what they wanted to do was to change it so that it becomes a one-stage procedure where the outcome will be integrated into that forgery called the 1999 Constitution. And even the Senate president, who was David Mark at the time, he was also involved in all this treason against his own people and against Nigerians. And what we are insisting, because we are the ones who have the sovereignty and we are speaking through NINAS, we are insisting that we who will be in any union will be decided by referendum. And the NINAS spokesman, he's let us know that even though we may not be able to see it right now, but we have actually succeeded. And how we know that we have succeeded is that there's now a consensus that we have delegitimized the 1999 Constitution. Many people know that it is, illegitimate. We've got the Patriots. They actually said it was illegitimate. That's the one that was the meeting that was chaired by Anyoko. They said that it is illegitimate. It cannot be amended. And others have been saying that Shoinka has said it. So has some other people whose names escape me now. So we have succeeded in that. And the 1999 Constitution, we need to realize it has been defeated. We are now at the decommissioning process. And after that, when there's a critical mass who have sort of like understood that, it will be the dismantling. So essentially, what we are fighting is we are fighting for who has sovereignty. Are we going to allow a bunch of rogues and criminals, including the Fulani, are we going to allow them to carry on killing us, carry on stealing our resources while we just wail and moan? Or are we going to play the man? And are we going to take what is ours, because sovereignty is ours? And what I have also picked up, and I think many of us over the time that we've been as NINAS, is that words are important. It is words that they are using to confuse everyone and to tie us into this hoax union. And it's also going to be words that we are going to use to get ourselves out. And when we talk about words, there's a parallel with what is going on with us here in Nigeria and other parts of Africa and even the Caribbean, with what went on in the place called the United States. It was words in their laws, in slave codes, that made the black man in America, the African man, to be, terrorized by white supremacy. It was words, and it is words that they are using right now to steal our resources, that we don't have electricity, and that people are fleeing abroad and all these things. So what we can gain from this journey, because it's a journey that we are also learning and we will need it for the future, and we will need to teach the young people, is that words are very important. And we as NINAS, we have the upper hand because we have circled them up. That 1999 Constitution is a forgery, and the only thing they can now try and do is to bring up other forgeries and other frauds like the Confab report. And the last thing that I'll say is that the spokesman, he's already told us why the Confab report is not acceptable. And let's not forget that when they selected the people, because Michael Zekome was trying to say, oh, that is representative of Nigerians. No, it's not. It's going to have to be representatives of the ethnic nationalities, of the ethnic nations, not representatives of the 36 states that we didn't create or the 774 local government areas. So the way they selected people to come to the confab was already not acceptable because it was not based on who has sovereignty. So that's what I think we learned from today. Those are the key points, that we are winning and that we just have to carry on doing what we're doing so that more and more people will get to hear what we're saying and what NINAS stands for. And with that, I yield the mic.
Thank you very much. Alhaji Tajuddin, please, you have the floor for closing remarks. Oh.
I can't see him. Is he here?
Yes, I can't see him.
I can't see him.
Lady, please, can you wrap up just closing remarks in 2 minutes, please?
Okay, well, yes, well, the closing remarks are also following from what the spokesman said, and what I'm saying is that we are here, we come to these clubhouses because to make sure that our arrows are sharp, our knives are sharp, that we are sharp, we're not dull, and we will know what to say to people. And that when we see what's going on in Nigeria, we'll be able to analyze it through the eyes of sovereignty and through the eyes of the NINAS proposition. So that is really my closing remarks, is that we're doing well and that we should carry on. And there's also work going on in the grassroots, which of course we're not going to hear about in the newspapers, but that, we're doing well. So those are my closing remarks. I yield the mic.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Nadi, please, I don't know if you have any further contributions before the announcement to end today's section. Mr. Nadi, please, do you have any contributions?
No, I think we have had a great meeting. There's something that escaped my mind as I spoke. The question of how to address, I'm quite satisfied, and I say it all the time, with no titles at all. Please, Shola, we have not reset the rules to say, to set any other standard. I'm quite okay to be called Tony Nadi or Mr. Nadi. Please, let's Patrick, please. The force of what we have on the table is all that counts. What we do with it as a group, as individuals, is all that counts. Let people be free to. The titles don't take us far. That's what. We understand what you are trying to say, but please let us elevate our platform to where the rest of the world are. You see them, even if the US president walks into some place, it's a simple thing. Let's not set rules about how if we find a mister to it, that's how far it goes. That's what I wanted to say in concerning that. I think we've had a great meeting, and I'll yield the mic.
Thank you, sir, for that clarification. Justina, please, you have the floor for announcements.
Good evening, everybody. I want to say a very big thank you to our spokesperson. Thank you so much for not giving up on generations unborn. God bless you, sir. These are the announcements. I want to thank everyone for coming for tonight's prolonged illuminating section. For us to work effectively and efficiently, we'll be having joint clubhouse sections together at 7 p.m. Nigerian time on Tuesdays, and on Saturdays, we'll be having the Daughters of Truth on Facebook and YouTube at 5:30 p.m. Nigerian time. Please, we are all encouraged in the immediate task of massively disseminating NINAS project materials to all our people, and we are to sensitize them via the NINAS website, www.ninasvoice.org, and on YouTube, NINAS Voice on YouTube. We have over 300 videos, and we are encouraged to watch and share them widely. For further information, you can call the NINAS Secretariat on 0912-993-155 and 090-647-20016. At the count of 5, this clubhouse will be shut down. The countdown begins. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Goodbye and God bless you.